On paper, the transaction looked like a routine real estate deal. Signed in New York in February 2025, closed with a wire transfer and a press release. Nobody outside the financial press paid much attention to it. The subject of that transaction was the American waterfront. Blackstone Infrastructure Partners, one of the largest private equity firms on Earth, had agreed to pay $5.65 billion for safe harbor marinas, 138 facilities spread across the United States and Puerto Rico, the largest marina chain in the country. Inside that press release was a sentence that tells you everything about what that transaction was actually about. Blackstone described safe harbor as a market with, quote, significant pricing power. A 40-foot sailboat. A cruising sailor running 120 nights on the water per year, paying the national average transient slip rate of $3 per foot per night. That is $120 per night. $14,400 disappearing from that sailor's account every year before electricity, before pump-out fees, before the liveaboard surcharge that most marina lease agreements attach automatically. Blackstone paid $5.65 billion because they understand something about that number. They understand it holds only as long as the sailor does not know about the alternative. This video is the alternative. Have you been paying that toll without knowing the exit existed? If this is the kind of investigation you want more of, subscribe to Yachts and Boats. We run the math the marina does not want run. Safe harbor. Marinas generated $460 million in revenue in 2024. That number came primarily from annual slip leases, transient docking fees, and service charges applied to recreational boats across 22 states. The company's revenue grew year over year, not because it added services, but because it added facilities and raised rates at the ones it already owned. When Sun Communities acquired Safe Harbor in October 2020, they paid $2.11 billion. 4 years later, they sold it to Blackstone for $5.65 billion. The capital gain on that investment was $1.3 billion, extracted entirely from a business model built on charging sailors for access to the waterfront. The transient slip rate varies significantly by location. At Liberty Harbor, Marina in Jersey City, the year-round slip rate for a 40-foot vessel in 2026 is $320 per foot, which equals $12,800 annually before electricity, which is billed additionally at current metered rates. Boston's waterfront marinas charge between $5 and $7 and 25 cents per foot per night during peak season. A single overnight stay for a 40-foot sailboat at the Boston Waterboat Marina in July costs $290 for the slip, plus $50 for electricity at the 50-amp pedestal. In New York City, seasonal slip fees at private marinas run from $65 to $230 per foot per year, depending on the facility and the borough. The marina does not mention what sits 2 miles off the harbor mouth. A sailor making 30 transient marina stops per year at the national average rate on a 40-foot vessel pays roughly $3,600 in slip fees for nights they were legally entitled to spend at anchor at no cost. Over a 5-year cruising plan, that is $18,000, the purchase price of a sound used blue water sailboat. The arithmetic compounds in other directions too. A sailor who does not know that free anchorage infrastructure exists is a sailor who plans their passage around marinas, who routes through higher traffic channels, who chooses popular harbors over protected coves, who pays $30 for a mooring buoy in a crowded harbor when a federally designated anchorage with good holding ground sits 1 mile away. The information gap does not just cost money, it shapes the entire structure of how a cruising life is planned. The right to anchor in navigable United States waters is not a privilege the marina industry grants. It is a federal statutory right that predates every safe harbor marina by more than a century. The Rivers and Harbors Act, signed by President William McKinley on March 3, 1899, designates all navigable waters of the United States as public commons. Obstruction of navigation, including interference with anchoring, is a federal misdemeanor under 33 United States Code, Section 471. Under Title 33 of the Code of Federal Regulations, Part 110, Subpart A, the United States Coast Guard has designated hundreds of special anchorage areas across the country. Each one is a federally protected zone where any recreational vessel under 65 feet may drop anchor and spend the night without filing notice with any harbor authority, without displaying an anchor light, and without paying a fee of any kind. Every one of those anchorage areas is depicted on NOAA electronic navigational charts. Free charts are updated every weekday by the NOAA Office of Coast Survey and are available for download at nauticalcharts.noaa.gov at no cost, with no account required and no expiration date. That database, documenting your right to sleep for free in protected United States waters, has been sitting on a government server, publicly funded and publicly maintained for the entire time you have been paying transient slip fees. The pattern is not accidental. The public trust doctrine, the legal principle that underpins free navigation in American waters, is older than the United States. Its roots trace to Roman law, to the concept the Romans called jus publicum, the public's right in tidal and navigable waters, distinct from private ownership. Lord Hale codified it in the English legal treatise De Jure Maris in the 17th century. American courts incorporated it into constitutional jurisprudence before the Civil War, drawing on centuries of common law that preceded the first marina on the American coastline. Anchoring is not a technicality at the edge of federal law. The Florida Attorney General's Office issued Opinion 85-45, a formal legal determination, stating that anchoring is an inherent element of the right of navigation under common law. That opinion has never been reversed. It predates every anchoring restriction bill filed in the Florida legislature by 4 decades. 33 CFR Part 110, Subpart A runs from Section 110.4 through Section 110.129C in the Electronic Code of Federal Regulations. Within that range, the Coast Guard has designated individual anchorage areas across every coastal district in the country. Penobscot Bay, Maine; Newport Harbor, Rhode Island; Marblehead Harbor, Massachusetts; Chicago Harbor on Lake Michigan; Corpus Christi Bay, Texas; the St. Johns River, Florida; San Diego Harbor, California; Madeline Island, Wisconsin. Each section defines geographic coordinates. Each one is a named, protected, legally free overnight anchorage. What those designations mean in practice: a sailor transiting the Maine coast drops anchor in one of the Penobscot Bay special anchorage areas. No harbor authority call required. No anchor light after dark. No slip fee at checkout. The federal government designated that cove for recreational overnight use, and the designation has been in continuous effect since 1967. A sailor who does not know that designation exists pays $50, $80, or $100 to a marina 10 miles away from where they were legally entitled to sleep for free. Multiply that across a cruising season. 30 nights at anchor in federally designated special anchorage areas at an average avoided cost of $90 per night returns $2,700 per season to the sailor's account. That is a bottom paint job. That is a new standing rigging quote. That is the margin between a sailing life that sustains itself and one that drains a shore-based savings account to keep going. The NOAA Coast Pilot has been in publication since 1796. It is one of the earliest nautical documents produced by the American government. Volume 1, covering the Atlantic coast from Eastport, Maine to Cape Cod, was updated April 12, 2026. It contains written anchorage descriptions for every harbor along the Maine coast, which coves offer good holding ground in sand, which are sheltered from southwest winds, which carry sufficient depth for a vessel drawing 6 feet at low water. That information is contained in a free government publication older than the United States Coast Guard itself. The sailing industry shares no institutional incentive to route sailors toward those locations. A cruising guide that lists free anchorages is a guide that competes with the Marina advertising revenue that funds it. An insurance underwriter who recommends free anchoring is an underwriter recommending the kind of independent, low-cost sailing life that generates smaller premium income. The information has always been public. The withholding of it has always been structural. The right to anchor for free in American waters is documented in federal statute, maintained by a federal agency, and updated every weekday. The question is not whether the right exists. The question is who decided to dismantle it and when they started. In May 2017, a company called ActiveCaptain operated the largest free community anchorage database in the United States. Sailors had spent years contributing notes, waypoints, depth soundings, and anchorage reviews to that platform, voluntarily, at no cost to the platform or to any other user. The database covered thousands of anchorages along the East Coast, Gulf Coast, and Pacific shoreline. It was the kind of resource that only exists because a community builds it, maintains it, and gives it away. Garmin acquired ActiveCaptain in May 2017. 6 months later, in October 2017, Garmin acquired Navionics, the chart subscription service that a previous investigation on this channel documented charging sailors 233% more per year than it did when the community first trusted it. Two community-built marine resources, the same acquirer, the same 6-month window, the same destination, a subscription paywall where free access used to be. The anchorage database sailors built for free is now accessible only through a paid Garmin subscription. The chart data derived from government-produced NOAA information is sold back to those same sailors at $49.99 per year. The communities that created both platforms did not receive equity. They received a platform migration notice and a price increase in the same envelope. That is, 2 community captures in 6 months by the same company. Which one has cost your sailing budget more, the anchorage database or the charts? Drop your answer in the comments. Safe Harbor followed the same acquisition logic at a different scale. Independent marina operators on the American coastline understood one thing that private equity later priced at $5.65 billion. The geography of the waterfront means no competitor can build a rival facility 3 miles away. Slip demand in coastal markets structurally outpaces new supply. The sailor who needs a berth has limited alternatives. Sun Communities acquired Safe Harbor in October 2020 for $2.11 billion. The COVID-19 pandemic had driven recreational boat sales to their highest level since 2008. New boat owners across the United States needed somewhere to keep their boats. Safe Harbor had the slips. Over the 4 years that followed, Safe Harbor expanded from 101 marinas to 138, acquiring independent facilities across 22 states and Puerto Rico. The independent marina operators who sold into the portfolio did not advertise the acquisition to their existing slip tenants in advance. The slip tenants found out when the new signage went up and the annual renewal paperwork arrived with revised fee schedules and a corporate address in Sarasota, Florida. Marina revenues reached $460 million in 2024, up from $431 million the year before. In February 2025, Blackstone paid $5.65 billion to acquire that revenue stream. Sun Communities booked $1.3 billion in profit on a 4-year hold. The thesis Blackstone published to justify the price: marinas are high barrier to entry infrastructure with significant pricing power. Significant pricing power is the investor's translation of a specific observation about the sailor's position. Moving a liveaboard boat from a safe harbor facility to an independent marina requires a new slip lease, possibly a revised insurance endorsement, a change of address for federal vessel documentation, registration, and mail. The friction of leaving is high enough that annual fee increases do not trigger mass departure. The sailor stays because leaving costs more than staying. The math is not subtle. The enclosure of the American marina market followed a documented playbook: acquire the infrastructure, raise the fees, and wait. What came next required a different kind of power, a kind that needed a legislature. Florida Governor Ron DeSantis signed House Bill 481 into law on May 20, 2025. The bill moved through the Florida legislature with unusual speed. Senate leadership bypassed its own version and passed the House bill directly. It was sent to the governor and signed while the legislature was still in session, despite an active opposition campaign from boating advocacy organizations. The provisions are specific. Overnight anchoring is now banned in and around the Venetian Islands and Sunset Island in Biscayne Bay. The mandatory buffer zone around every commercial mooring field in the state of Florida was tripled from 100 feet to 300 feet, statewide, effective immediately upon signing. A commercial mooring field charges a per-night fee for the use of a mooring buoy. Before May 20, 2025, a boat anchored within 100 feet of a commercial mooring field boundary was exercising a federally established right at no cost. After May 20, 2025, that same boat, at anchor in that same water column, is in violation of Florida Statute 327.4109 as amended by Chapter 2. 1025-39. The text of that statute is publicly available. The legal effect of the 300-foot expansion is not ambiguous. The boat that was anchoring free inside what is now a prohibited zone has two choices under the new law: anchor farther out in less sheltered water or pay the mooring field. That transfer from a free, federally established right to a paid state-regulated alternative did not happen by accident and was not opposed without reason. America's Great Loop Cruises Association opposed House Bill 481 directly. Multiple trips to Tallahassee, hundreds of member emails and phone calls to state legislators. The bill passed regardless. A separate bill, House Bill 795 and Senate Bill 594, proposed no anchor zones around all 16 Florida commercial seaports, with exclusion buffers ranging from 1,500 to 5,000 feet. After sustained opposition, the sponsor withdrew it. That bill is gone for this session. The underlying campaign to extend restricted anchoring zones around commercial marine infrastructure is not. Blackstone closed the safe harbor acquisition the same quarter House Bill 481 was signed. Other coastal states are monitoring the Florida legislation for precedent. The enclosure of the American waterfront is advancing by law as well as by acquisition. The ledger does not lie. The Electronic Code of Federal Regulations, Title 33, Part 110, Subpart A, is publicly accessible at ecfr.gov, the website of the Office of the Federal Register, at no cost, with no account required, and updated continuously. That register documents every federally designated special anchorage area in the United States, from Section 110.4 covering Penobscot Bay, Maine, through Section 110.129C on the Pacific Coast. Each entry specifies the geographic coordinates of the anchorage boundary. Each one is a location where a recreational vessel under 65 feet can spend the night under federal authority that has been in place since 1899 and has not been repealed by any legislation currently in effect. At nauticalcharts.noaa.gov, the NOAA Custom Chart tool allows any sailor to center a chart on any U.S. cruising region, set the scale and paper size, and download a current electronic navigational chart depicting every designated anchorage in magenta, alongside depth soundings, navigational hazards, and aids to navigation. That chart reflects the edition updated that same weekday. No subscription, no account. It is built from the same government source data that Navionics is built on, and that Navionics charges for annually. OpenCPN is free, open-source chart plotter software maintained by a global development community. It accepts NOAA ENCS directly. Installation on a laptop or tablet takes under 10 minutes. A sailor running OpenCPN with current NOAA ENCS has a fully functional electronic chart display showing the identical government data available in a commercial subscription product at a total software cost of $0. The NOAA Coast Pilot, 10 volumes, is free at nauticalcharts.noaa.gov. It provides written anchorage descriptions for every navigable coastal and inland waterway in the country. Depths, holding ground type, shelter direction, hazards on approach, proximity to fuel, and reprovisioning facilities. Volume 4, covering the Atlantic coast from Cape Henry, Virginia to Key West, Florida, describes in written detail every anchorage available to a sailor transiting the intracoastal waterway. Volume 6 covers the Gulf Coast. Volume 7 covers the Pacific coast from California through Oregon and Washington. The full set costs nothing. OpenSeaMap is the open-source nautical overlay built on OpenStreetMap data, accessible in a browser at no cost and integrable into OpenCPN as a free plugin layer. It documents anchorages, harbor services, waterway information, and hazard markers contributed by sailors worldwide. The data belongs to the community that created it. Unlike ActiveCaptain, it has not been acquired. A sailor who replaces 100 transient Marina nights with free anchorages documented in federal law, plotted on free NOAA charts on a free OpenCPN installation, returns $12,000 per year to their own account. Over 10 years of cruising, that is $120,000, the price of the information gap that this video has now closed. Florida's House Bill 481 restricted specific waters as of May 20th, 2025. The campaign to extend no anchor zones around commercial seaports was defeated this session and will return in the next. What remains intact is the majority of the right, the hundreds of federally designated special anchorage areas from Maine to California, the free NOAA charts that display every one of them, and the open-source software that puts them on a plotter at no cost, in any harbor, on any coastline where safe harbor has not yet persuaded a legislature to redraw the line. The only monopoly they can enforce is the one you accept. Yachts and Boats runs this investigation every week. Subscribe so you don't miss what's next.